Good morning, good afternoon, good night. No matter where you're listening to Empowerment Radio from, I welcome you to the show, and I am so grateful that you have tuned in and that you are ready to get one step further on your journey to self-empowerment, like we all are on that journey. And today I want to talk about this really important topic, which I think I called the one thing we need to survive as a species. And that sounds really kind of almost scary. What is the one thing? Is it oxygen? Is it clean water? Is it food? Is it a Mars bar? No, what we really need to survive is compassion. Now, compassion is, I think, a very important topic that probably all of us have thought about, all of us have felt at some point, all of us have hopefully also experienced as a recipients of compassion. But the reason why I'm saying this is so important for us as a species to survive is because of those really tragic events that happened in Houston with Harvey, and now everyone in Florida and the islands, the Caribbean islands, and maybe in other areas on the East Coast are bracing themselves already for Irma. And what those storms and other natural disasters really show to us, that they don't make any distinction between races, between haves or haves not, between political affiliation, between any preferences. It doesn't matter to a storm. It just comes and it asks us to deal with it. Now, how did we deal with it? How did the people in Houston and around deal with it? Well, one of the things that I found so positive and encouraging and inspirational was how the authorities were asking for volunteers. Please, can you get out your trucks, your boats, your kayaks, and help looking for people that need support, that may be stuck on their roofs, that may be stuck in their homes. And people came out in droves. They were absolutely ready to do whatever they can to even put their own lives at risk to help others. Others were in shelters and were donating clothes and food and money. And I think that is what compassion in action is all about, coming together as a community, as equals, and just knowing, yes, you are in need and I will show up for you and I will help you. Now, we don't necessarily only have to show up in compassion when there is a disaster, right? We should be able to tap into compassion and be compassionate to each other on a day-to-day basis. Wouldn't life be much better? Wouldn't it be so much more pleasant if we would know that when you meet someone, there is a compassionate person across you? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we would actually not fall into judgment or any kind of negativity towards others, but be able to see them through compassionate eyes? Well, that is not necessarily the tendency that we are living in right now. And that is something we have just to be aware of. The reality of the current climate, not only in the US, but in other countries as well, is more a climate of divisiveness. It's a climate of anger. It's a climate of us versus them. It's a climate that basically is rejecting and excluding a lot that is different. People that look different, have different origins, have different languages they speak. That tendency that right now comes from fear, from anxiety, from a sense of insecurity that says, let's just build a wall. Let's just keep people out or send them back. Let's just make everyone fight for themselves and let us be the ones that, are the closest, and everyone who is different let them just, basically deal on their own. That is not compassionate living, and I believe as a species, we cannot survive if we are just separating ourselves again into little tribes that are just only looking after their kindred spirits and not looking after all those that may be outside of the tribe. So compassion is, I believe, a healing energy. I think compassion is a force inside of us that we all have ability to get to. And I think compassion is that what will make our species eventually overcome all the challenges that we are dealing with, whether it's challenges like global warming, shortage of food, shortage of water, whether it's the challenges of dealing with people that are in power but obviously, a little crazy, like in North Korea. There are challenges that we are all facing right now that without compassion and without feeling that link, that energy between us, will be hard to deal with. So today the show is dedicated to our compassion. First of all, what is compassion and how can we make our ability to be compassionate towards others and also towards ourselves stronger? Now, when I looked into the dictionary of compassion, it says interesting things that I don't totally agree with. But what it said, for example, is that compassion is defined as a feeling that arises when we are confronted with another suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. Now, another definition said that compassion is the ability to feel other people's pain and be in pain with them. But that is empathy than compassion. And I think there is a very important distinction to make between empathy and compassion. A lot of people are empathetic, especially those that are very sensitive. Now, when they're empathetic, that means that they do feel other people's pain. I'm very empathetic myself, and when I see on TV someone at the dentist getting a cavity filled, I feel the drill in my teeth. I can actually feel the vibration. And so I think empathy is certainly something that makes us just live through whatever difficulty or pain other people are dealing with. Now, the problem with empathy is that empathy also often leads us to being stuck in the experience of others. So if you are sad and then there is an empathetic person who feels your sadness, well, that person sits next to you and also cries, which may feel good. Shared misery is always better than alone, but at the end, it's not necessarily getting you out of that hole that you're in. It's like you're drowning and the empathetic person is jumping in the water and is drowning with you. Well, the compassionate person, on the other hand, would see that you're drowning and would look for a life preserver or a piece of wood or anything to get you out of the water. A compassionate person sees you in the darkness of your mind and holds up the light to make you just see the way out. A compassionate person understands that you're in pain and maybe in a place of great insecurity, but that person sees beyond those illusions and beyond those beliefs and knows that there is potential for you to heal, potential for you to grow, potential for you to also love and appreciate yourself. So compassion goes beyond empathy because it also opens the way, just like these amazing helpers in Houston and Texas did. They went out of their way to help. They were not just suffering with their fellow citizens, they did something about it. So compassion is the ability to really be there from others and it's for others, and it starts with that just awareness, the awareness that someone is in need and someone is struggling. I remember the first time I was compassionate, and I don't know if you remember the first time you felt compassion, but I was a little boy. And my parents had this tradition on Christmas to go out and bring some little baskets with some delicacies, food, coffee, wine, to those that really had nothing. Often these were older people that lived out in farms or in little small houses. Maybe, often these were women that had lost their husband and had a very small pension and just barely made ends meet. And when I saw one day this older woman in her tiny little living room that also was her bedroom, and we brought the basket in, and we were the only ones that actually cared about her because she had no relatives left, and she was just so frail, but at the same time she was so happy, and she had tears in her eyes and a big smile on her face. That was Christmas for her, that moment where we came in. In that moment, I felt so much empathy for her loneliness, and certainly also for her meager life and her challenges. And at the same time, I also felt that compassion because I admired that she could really receive, and that she was smiling, and that she was giving me a piece of the chocolate that she had, just to give a little bit back. And so I felt that even though I was just a little boy, that I made a difference with my mother, that just the presence, not only the gifts, but the presence of us really, I believe, brought light in her day. And so that was a very, very nice memory for me, and especially at that Christmas, a better and I think also deeper memory than the train that I got as a present, and that actually never really worked. So, but that's a whole different story I can tell another time. After the break, we will talk more about compassion. What is actually something we can do? What are steps that help us to tap into our ability to have compassion? And is it a natural ability, or do we actually have to learn it? And are there people that just cannot be compassionate? All of those questions will be answered after the break. So stay tuned.